All right, so I hope you were able to follow that previous video, because this one just shoots right off from all that ranting. So this is my first design experiment into solving some of those perceived issues and seeing where it goes. And so first of all, this one's got a cam. One of the roles of the block is, as the bolt sits in the block, it holds it side to side. And once you are holding it side to side by another mechanism, like the slot, the block and the 2-bolt system can become a cam. And a cam allows a transition from going straight to turning, whereas the block is either it's going straight, it's turning, it's going straight, it's turning. It's a much more abrupt feel, and I'm going to be overstating it because it's completely rideable as a 2-bolt system. There's times where you notice it though. But by moving to a cam, I feel it's the best. I feel that's the cam is most worthwhile. So what I've got is I've got the cam, I've got a slot, and I don't really have any axle offset built into this model, just for simplicity. And so as you turn, you have a raising center, right? There you go. The whole thing rolls up, and you can see, first of all, the slot is way too small, because basically the farther you are from the pivot anchor, if you go up 5 degrees and you're way out here, whoop, your travel is huge. So by putting a slot way out in front, you need a really tall slot to account for all the articulation you might have. So that's one problem. The other thing I wanted to try with this is I moved the cam a lot closer to the point of articulation in the pivot anchor, so that the axle overhangs it by a lot. In fact, the cam is actually supposed to be right in the middle, but it actually ends up being way closer to the pivot anchor than it is the axle. So here's how I'll explain why I did that. Say you have a set raising center and it's this height, right? If you have the pivot anchor here, that angle is that big. If you have the pivot angle here, that angle is that big, much smaller. That angle change is how much the pivot angle changes in your steering. In addition to that, let's say we've got the axle here versus out here. On the first one, well, let's put it more reasonably right here. On the first angle, that axle would be up here. On the second one, the axle would be much lower right there. So it allows you to have a higher raising center where the axle is at by moving the axle out and moving the cam close to the pivot, basically. That makes sense? Hope it makes sense. So that's all the things I was experimenting with this design. One other artifact of that is because the axle is cantilevered out so much, the raising center is exacerbated by that distance from the pivot, but also your weight and the travel from the absorption of vibrations in the polyurethane, that is also exacerbated as well. The other thing I observed from this is how much vertical slop there is in the system that Mark's using, because I just copied that. And you can see, like when I press down, how much the back comes up. And so we're actually losing some of our raising center to that feature. And instead of compressing the cam like it's supposed to, it's just shifting around this. So that's no good. So anyway, so that's the first experiment in taking the 2-bolt into a cam truck design idea. So in the next video, I'll be looking at my second experiment, and that one is much cooler and reveals even more things.